In today's video, we're going to be looking at the Stability Killer AI Expert Advisor by Pablo from Bloods Algo Limited. So I've actually met Pablo a few times, and he's a very intelligent guy who understands trading. So when he puts out a bot, it's always cool to kind of look at it and see the strategy behind it. Obviously, I never take payment for these videos. I just kind of look at the bot and give my opinion. So there's no bias here. But if I know a developer and I've had a conversation with them, you usually know that people have a certain baseline level of knowledge. Whereas I think some of the other folks on the MQL5 marketplace just make stuff which blatantly will never ever make money because they have no idea how to trade. So it's just good to point that out. So here, this is a OddCAD bot. And what's really cool is that he's put a custom AI model in it. And a lot of different MQL5 bots claim to use AI. And the thing is, if you read the sales page, you can pretty quickly tell if it's blatantly fake or if there's actually some real AI behind it. And there's usually a few kind of telltale signs to figure this out. Some of these pages, like, it's so blatantly jargony and it looks like ChatGPT wrote it. And they use things like the neural quantum framework, blah, 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 which is just blatantly fake, right? There's no way you can put a quantum computer in an expert advisor. MQL5, I'm pretty sure the language was written in 1997. Good luck putting quantum computers in that. Whereas here, the type of AI he's referencing is something that I've actually also put in an expert advisor. So I know for sure that this works. So pretty much what he's saying is that he's using an XGBoost gradient boosting model via ONNX runtime. And what this means is you typically can just take XGBoost, which is a Python package, which is a type of a machine learning model based on gradient boosted trees. So pretty much it makes a bunch of decision trees and it helps bucket samples in these buckets essentially to classify various samples based on an AI machine learning model called gradient boosting. And specifically what this is usually used for is a classifier. So a classifier in machine learning would simply mean that you take a series of samples and you can classify them into one or two buckets. And in trading, the easiest way to do this is up or down. So for instance, you can feed a bunch of data points which represent a moment in time to a gradient boosted tree model. And you can pretty much say, after this data point, did price go up or down? And then these classifier models, XGBoost being one of them, will go and pretty much train something which can recognize these data points and tell you with a certain probability that given this one sample, if we compare it to previous samples, it has X probability of going up. And it's doing this through essentially a decision tree framework. Google will give you guys a lot more information than I can in a short video, but it's a real model, it works, and it's actually one of the best for trading because quite often if you try and use a neural net, it's way too sensitive, whereas if you just tweak a little parameter, the whole thing can just go boom. Versus XGBoost, if you train it properly, you don't make it too deep, you keep it shallow enough, you know how to actually train machine learning models, it can be pretty robust. And it's used by a lot of pros. So XGBoost and CatBoost are some of the best decision tree and machine learning models for trading. So he knows what he's doing. And what ONNX is it's simply the bridge that enables you to use a Python file in MQL5. So what you do is ONNX is almost like a file format where you can save in ONNX format from a Python document, and then you can read said Python file, whatever, in MQL5, which then enables you to actually use something which is created in a far more complex coding language in MQL5, because MQL5, the actual language is pretty limited. So if you can bridge a model over from Python, it can work really well. So all of this to say, pardon my rambling, this is a real type of AI. It's actually one of the best types of AI that you can use for trading. And I think Pablo's a software engineer by trade, so it makes sense that he knows how to do this. It needs a little bit more competence than many other types of AI because you need to know how to custom trade a model. So if you don't know what you're doing, it can also be bad because then you could very much overfit, whereas ChatGPT is really trained by the pros. But if you do know what you're doing, this can be quite a powerful tool. So he's pretty much combining this with a OddCAD strategy. So I venture that it's probably a basic mean reversion strategy, or not basic. That's you don't want to discredit somebody's work. A mean reversion strategy which runs on OddCAD, likely with a variety of kind of AI on top of it. Something else which is cool and once again shows that this guy knows what he's doing is you are backtesting the news filter with a CSV file, and this also works, and I've done this many times, where pretty much like you can simply export the calendar, put it in, I think, either common data files or data files, and you can read from that. And that enables you to backtest news, which is actually really key. So iVenture is using a grid system here because I've done this personally in the past for myself. I never sold these bots. I don't like to sell grids, but I've done this in the past for myself, whereas like grid bots are super news sensitive. So if you want to backtest it accurately, you should also backtest it with a news filter, because the days where the grid is more likely to get deep are usually high impact news days. So if you can filter those days out using a news filter, your backtest can look a lot better. I am not doing that here because you have to probably read through it in detail and go and make sure that everything's matching properly. And in the interest of time, I'm not doing that in this particular video. But most likely, if you were to actually run that, you'd see a further enhanced improvement on the actual backtest. So all of this is looking solid so far. And if we look at the live signal, which he's running on IC Trading, once again, looking pretty good. If we look at the times here too, they are closing at the same time, but it looks like on this particular signal where he's running NZDCAD, he's not scaling the lot size. So it could be that you have the option of doing a grid with a lot size scaling or not, and that's up to the user. So I ran a backtest here in MT5, and it is very much a mean aversion grid. You are also going to be able to actually probably backtest the AI. The real benefit of using a gradient boosted model is you can backtest it. Because if you ever used an LLM, ChatGPT, etc., and you try and run a backtest with that, it simply doesn't work because you can't use web requests in the MQL5 backtester. However, you can backtest chat or a custom trained AI model, and you can actually save it as part of the file. So I venture that he is actually doing that here, and part of the reason why we're seeing a nice and stable equity curve for more of a grid model is indeed that he is using the LLM, or pardon me, the custom AI here. So overall, looks really solid. If we kind of go out to the H4, we can see that it is very much indeed using a grid, mean aversion grid, quite a few different levels, but he gives you the ability to cap the risk, and you're able to actually both cap the number of grid trades which open, as well as cap the max drawdown, all of which looks really good. One thing I'm going to do here is maybe you're able to actually turn the grid off. And if you can do that, I'd be pretty curious to see what it actually looks like. So maybe if we set this thing to 1 as our max grid level, and we turn off every tick based on real ticks to be a bit faster, let's see what that looks like. Okay, clearly I did something wrong, so that would not work. Maybe you have to do it there, but I'm not so sure if he's enabling us to actually turn off the grid. True, risk medium, fixed lot, max grid levels. Let's try like 5 instead perhaps and see what will happen there. Okay, so clearly something is a little bit wrong here. You probably can't toggle that. Use auto lot, risk medium. We can do risk prop firm and see if perhaps that looks a bit different. Now it's still using the grid, but most likely that is indeed capping the total possible drawdowns, but still opening quite a few. So interesting. I don't think we necessarily have the ability to make it a non-grid system. Like I'm not seeing, I could be missing something here, but I'm not seeing it saying like no grid, no risk level, maximum grid levels. So it looks like, at least I could very well be missing something, but at least from my initial glances, it seems like he's not saying you cannot use a grid. So perhaps it's a bit more reliant as part of the strategy, but you might be able to significantly scale down the risk or impact the multiplier, which would then make it lower risk. But from what I can see so far, it is a very well developed EA. The fact that he also has a really advanced news filter in here, and he has a custom trade AI model, I think if you like this style of system, and there are a lot of people who like this style of system, it could be a very good fit. So definitely an interesting bot. He knows what he's doing. It clearly shows a lot of competence here. However, once again, the nature of the beast with grids is you do have to like this style of system, and you have to be mindful that unfortunately grids always have have a bit of a certain risk to them, but all trading has risk. So if this is the type of risk that you like, you should be okay with it. So ultimately, this is our EA here. I hope you guys found this video useful. Looks like a very well developed bot of this style. And I will see you in the next video. Cheers.